you on the long drive home. Passion was a prison when I pulled you close. Goddamn, I think you stole my heart. Tell me, do you feel it too? So what can I say to get to you? I'm doing all I can, but I can't break through. I'm alone all the time, but it feels like I'm invisible to you. So what can I say?
What's up, Make Pop Music? It's Austin here from Make Pop Music and Austin Hall Audio and Visual, and today we are back with another tutorial. And for today's video, I wanted to do something that you have all asked quite a bit in the comments, and that's go over how to make a pop rock track. So we get comments a lot that are like how to make a track like the band Camino, how to make a track like Bring Me the Horizon, etc., etc. So I figured today we would actually dive into a project that I had the pleasure of producing from a band called Nightbreakers. The song that we're going over is called Attention. It just came out a couple weeks ago, so if you like it, definitely go check it out and support them. They're from Tampa, Florida. Amazing kids, super talented, really good songwriters. But we did a lot of production to this track in the studio, and I did want to go over some of the production techniques and tools that we used to really transform this from a rock song to a kind of pop rock song where it's a really good blend of like dark pop, hip hop elements, and then you've also got your rock elements. So we're going to be going over everything. If you like this video, let us know, like, comment, and subscribe. It always helps us out a ton. If you have any questions, let me know and I can answer them in the comments below to the best of my ability. Other than that, if you want to check out some of the electronic samples and some of the synth presets that we use in this video, definitely head over to our site, makepopmusic.com, because we've got all of our packs there. In particular, the dark pop pack, the pop star pack, and the hip hop pack would probably be best if you're going this route, just to give you some insight. But like I said, if you have any questions, let us know. Let's go ahead and hop into the session because there is a lot to go over today. All right, now we're in the DAW. Let's go ahead and take a look at everything that we've got as a whole, and then we'll go through it individually. So you heard a preview at the beginning of the video. So right now, all of these yellow tracks are going to be like our drums and risers and effects and stuff like that. These green tracks are going to be the actual synths that we did. They are all printed just for CPU purposes. It was just not going to work with the tutorial. But if you guys want any kind of specific tutorial or preset from something, just let me know because I still have all of that saved in another version of the session. Teal is going to be all of our guitar, blue is going to be all of our bass, and then purple is going to be all of our vocals. So I think, honestly, let's probably just go ahead and we'll start at the beginning of the track and just work kind of chronologically like we always do. So the first thing that we actually started with in general is they came to me with a demo that basically had some very basic guitar, one or two basic synth items, and then some like electronic drums. So I remember we started with these two elements. It's like a pluck and a pad. So you're kind of getting like this nice little airy pad, and then this little pluck to give it some transient that's doing the exact same kind of chord progression. So it was the same MIDI for both of them. So we really started with that, and then they had this guitar right here. And for the guitar, we tracked it twice and then panned it right and left just to give it some extra space and width. And then we used Guitar Rig. Let me see if I can figure out what preset we used. Super Clean Funk, and then just kind of killed some of those like lows right here with some multi-band compression, and then threw on some delay, threw on some reverb, and then just kind of EQ'd it out just to make sure everything was sitting nice in the mix. So we did the same thing on the left side, and then we've got that plus those two pads. And the next thing that we did was we added this like kind of kick and snap. And that was just to give it like some actual movement without pulling in drums yet. We wanted to save the drums for a little bit later in the track. So once we had that, they definitely wanted some kind of like 808. So I went in Serum, just made an 808 like we always do, and that's printed out right here. Then at the same time, Zach, their singer, was also singing over it. So I'm just going to go ahead with what it sounds like. We didn't track the vocal yet in this process, but we were keeping that in mind before we started adding everything else. So with those basic drums, synth, and guitar, you've got these vocals on top.
Percussion, I heard it from a mile away. Your heartbeat, I'm pushing all the way to your face.
So the next thing to do was just to add some actual fun elements. So what we did is we added one more little pad that kind of swells. It's the spooky pad right here.
I heard it from a mile away. Your heartbeat, I'm pushing all the way to your face.
And then like right here, we stack this little synth over him to do a call and response kind of thing.
It feels like we're floating, and we just gotta pick.
So we do a lot of stuff like that in the song where we're enhancing elements that are already there. So melodically and structurally, we don't have too much going on. It's really just to create this nice big wall of sound. So with all of the synths, you've got this nice little, it's kind of like airy and it's not really taking up a lot of space. So it lets the guitars and the bass really take up a bit more of that front space. And then I wanted some kind of like little backbeat, so I'll show you what it sounds like with the vocals in. So I just added this little like bell that I bit crushed by quite a bit, and that to me added like a nice little cool, just ear candy, you know? So with pop rock tracks, you're gonna wanna do stuff like that quite a bit just to make sure that it's not a stale arrangement. And then it was really just kind of like layering up vocals and drums. So what we did for the drums was we have like a reverse clap going into a clap, and then an ah hit, this electronic kick, these little snaps, and then I stacked some rim hits and some hi-hats over it. So you can see that we're kind of alternating between like bit crushed rim hit and roomy rim hit. And the reason I'll do that is just to give it a little bit of depth and dimension. I like doing stuff like that a lot with percussion just to make sure that it's not super stale. Then I added this little snap loop in here kind of as a little drum fill. And then we threw in a clap loop from the Cashmere pack. And I threw snap heap and like some filters on just to give it some weird panning and like some phasery kind of automation. So with all of the drums together, now we've got a nice little bit of like just consistent beat plus a little bit of actual like pop in the back, so it's not just, you know, a standard boom, boom, ka, boom. You need something to kind of fill in that empty space, especially since the synths are so ambient. So with the synths, the guitars, and the bass now, it sounds like this. So we're doing pretty well in the verses. Let's talk a little bit about the vocal production that we did. So right here, we've got an intro vocal that's pretty dry, pretty standard.
So what can I say to get to you? I'm doing all I can, but I can't break through. Losing my mind, trying to get your attention, yeah.
Reverse vocal.
Percussion, heard it from a mile away.
Then we've got like this low vocal that I'm always doing in songs. We stacked it on certain phrases. And then we did a lot of delay throws in this song because there's a lot of empty space. And for the delay throws, I wanted to kind of crush them out and make them a little bit wide, so they kind of stick out from the mix a little bit.
Pushing all the red in your face.
Then once we come into the second half, we actually duplicated the left and right and added a harmony just to kind of make sure that the vocals grow with the song. So we go from one vocal with just some extra stuff happening here and there to 5 vocals, actually 6 vocals pretty consistently. So the low wide vocals stay in consistently now, and then we've got the lead melody on the left and the right in addition to the center, and we've got these harmonies on the left and the right to create this nice little stack.
It feels like we're floating, and we just caught up in the moment.
And these harmonies really took it to the next level. We knew that we wanted to do something, but we didn't want it to be like, we didn't want it to sound almost like a choir, so we just did these.
Feels like we're floating, and we just caught up in the moment.
And then just more vocal production.
Say the word or run away.
So this delay throw is kind of the same thing that we did earlier. I just drove up the format auto-tune to kind of give it that like alien-y, like nasally sound. So you can see it's just up 12 semitones just to give it that. And then crushed really, really hard. And then that's pretty much it that's going on for the verses. So you'll see that it's a couple main elements just with a lot of stuff to really fill in the blank spaces. So we got this total. So then we go into a bridge, and for the bridge, everything changes. We have a big kind of energy die down. So with the drums and the percussion, we really just have a lot of like swells and hits. And this is where we start to have those acoustic drums come in. So we've got a kick, and then I also layered an electronic kick over it, and then we've got his overheads doing like this little ride. So I'll show you what the kick sounds like by itself. Here is the acoustic kick. And then I layered this electronic kick just to make sure that we don't lose energy. Then we've got the rides. And then we have all those swells that kind of come up to do this more kind of electronic 1975 style tom fill. And I put a reverse tom going into that just to make sure that we had, you know, some cool energy. So there's a lot of stuff like that that like you don't really hear, but you'll more so feel it.
My heart, tell me, do you feel it too? So what can I say?
For the synths, we still have the main kind of airy pluck, the spooky pad, and the bubbly plucks, but then we're also going to pull in what I called weird ass pad and retro pad, just to give it a little bit more space and dimension. And we changed up the pattern, so we're not kind of doing that syncopated like bump, bump, bump. We're just like holding them out so it's a little bit more sustained. And then this is what the next pads will sound like. Because I really wanted it to have some ambience, and then we added this little retro pad in here. Which you'll hear those like retro kind of Jupiter, Juno pads quite a bit and stuff like the band Camino and Bring Me the Horizon and the 1975. Pretty much any kind of alternative pop rock band is going to be using sounds like that. You can make them in Serum, you can get them from like the Arturia bundle, you can get them from the Rolling Cloud, make them in Anitude. They're really, really simple. So we won't dive into that too much. So we have that layered up with that kind of kick and ride cymbal going in the pre-chorus. We've got these guitars right here. And how we did that was I just added decapitator before we put like the stomp box on. Then we have some overdrive, and then Guitar Rig is actually doing that little swell inside of it. It has a reverb down here that is actually kind of like reversing into itself, which I think gave it kind of a cool little dimension opposed to just being a standard, you know, pluck. Because you can kind of hear it in the mix.
When I kissed you on the long drive home, passion was a prison when I pulled you close.
Then we've just got this like little kind of plucky bass. That was just made in Serum. If you ever want a tutorial on that, let me know. Those kind of like jumpy basses are super easy to do with just a couple oscillators and a couple LFOs. And then that pretty much does it for the pre-chorus besides the vocals. Then we've got the lead, the left and the right, and then we've got this crushed vocal over top of everything.
When I kissed you on the long drive home, passion was a prison when I pulled you close. God damn, I think you stole my heart. Tell me, do you feel it too?
So now we're going into the hook, which is by far the biggest area of the song. So let's hop into the drums. We have this ah hit that we use a lot. To me, it's just a nice way to not use some kind of big crash. Love that. And then let's go to the actual drums. So in this area, we have acoustic drums with electronic drums pretty consistently. So I'll kind of let you hear what it all sounds like together. So Logan, their drummer, actually played this at his house and then sent me over the drum files, and I basically triggered everything, made MIDI out of it, and then sample replaced it, and then also use that for the layering. So we have the kick and the snare right here. Then we've got the toms just coming in. But the real kind of body of these drums comes in with this electronic kick that we layer over it. And then also this electronic snare. And this is what kind of gives it that band Camino vibe, where it's a really good mix of more kind of analog drum sounds mixed with kind of acoustic drum sounds, but it's still kind of polished all together. And that really makes the snare kind of big and wide and thick. Then I added in a third snare just to give us some kind of low punch. Then you've got the overheads from his kit. Then I just layered in some of the snaps and stuff like that. So we've got like the snap here. Really roomy to give us a little bit of extra tail. We did have that subtle hi-hat still in. And then we also have those rim hits from earlier in the song. The other things that we put in was I put in a shaker and a tambourine. So these are from our shakers and tambo packs. I use them so much just because it's really nice to have a loop where you don't have to play it, but you also don't have to program it to get that real life feel. So I have like a 16th just tambourine loop that's pretty straightforward, and then same thing with a shaker. And I panned them out oppositely, so we would just get a little bit of space, similar to how you would on like actual overheads. And then I just popped this big clap in here for some support. So as you can see, every drum part definitely has a specific purpose, and they're all kind of helping create that big wall of sound for the drums. And then same thing for synths. We have the airy pluck still happening, and the spooky pad. And then we also have the two pads that came in for the actual pre-chorus, so the weird ass pad and the retro pad. But the main thing that we end up swapping out is we have this bigger kind of retro pad. Just to add some extra brightness and body to it. And then we've got this cool little like sidechain pluck that was like, we threw Kickstarter on it to kind of give it a little bit of a jumpy movement. And then it just kind of swells. Then in the second half of the chorus, the lead little plucky thing goes up an octave, and that's pretty much it. The guitars for this chorus are actually pretty simple. We've just got the main left and right. And we just used guitar rig for that. And I kind of like that it had a little bit of slapback delay in it to just make it a little bit messier so it didn't feel too polished or too cut. And that's just to Jeff at Ronnie's preset, so it's not really doing anything too crazy. And then we did some EQ. We also have the guitar doing this lead, which you'll probably notice is the exact same as the sidechain synth. So again, just another example of how we wanted to blend electronic and organic elements and to kind of really give them the pop side and the rock side of pop rock. So now we've got all of that kind of layered over each other. And then let's go to the bass. So we have the actual bass that Spencer tracked, and that sounds like this. So I wanted it to have that kind of like broken speaker, really low end, just buzzy kind of cut. And that's what we did for that. So as you can hear, there's a lot of subs. We also added this little high end grind where we put in like a Sans amp and just kind of filtered it out. So we just have that top end. So we layered those over top of each other, then we threw in this like buzzy synth. And I just wrote the MIDI out to just kind of match what Spencer was playing. And then we put an 808 under it just to add a little bit of consistent low end, because I find a lot of the time when you track electric bass, it can just almost have too much dynamic to where it's kind of all over the place. So we compress the bass a lot and then put this 808 under it to give it that low end. Then you layer that over with everything and you've got this.
So what can I say to get to you? I'm doing all I can, but I can't break through. On my mind all the time.
And for me, the real shine in the song is the vocals. So we have the low wide vocals that will go through the whole chorus. And then we've got chorus leads, chorus left and right, which is the lead harmony, harmony left and right. And then we've also got a crushed wide vocal. So I'll take you through one by one so you can hear them.
So what can I say to get to you? I'm doing all I can.
So that's the main vocal. Then we've got these harmonies.
I can, but I can't break through. On my mind all of the time, but it feels like I'm
Then we've got that crushed wide vocal, which is sung an octave lower and not artificially done an octave lower. Then we've got this. And that just creates another just nice big wall of even sound with the vocals.
What can I say to get to you? I'm doing all I can, but I can't break through. On my mind all the time, but it feels like I'm invisible to you.
So that's pretty much it up to the chorus, and then we did have some stuff happening in the second verse that I can kind of show you real quick. So most of the drums stay the same. We do have a high snare that kind of comes in.
Talking to midnight, reluctant.
Synths stay the same. We had this sidechain synth that kind of I just duplicated and filtered out so it would kind of fade into the verse. Just to make sure it doesn't abruptly stop, but also make sure we don't carry any of that brightness into where everything's kind of filtering back out. The main changes that we have on this is we actually did electric bass on this, and I put this like cool little grind on it that I do want to take the time to actually dive in and show you, because that was probably one of my favorite things I did. So there's the bass normally. What I did was I duplicated that and then cut out all of the middle parts with like the little taps and the stutters and everything like that. And then filtered out the low end, put on mono to stereo to make it wide, and then Camel crushed it. So now we've got this like mid to high end that's spread out really wide. And you'll probably hear this, like John Bellion just did this in a song, I think maybe Conversations with My Wife. It's a really cool way to add some width in bass without making it super messy on the sides with low end. So definitely try that. Filter it out, crush it a lot, and then just spread it out however you want. Vocal production is pretty much the same. You can see we basically paralleled ourselves on this. And then we don't have any consistent guitar in the second verse. Instead, we just do these like nice little flourishes. Again, just using guitar rig and H delay. And that's pretty much it for the second verse. Everything else kind of stays the same. Then we go into a pre-chorus and a chorus, which are pretty much identical. But then after the second chorus, there's kind of a post-chorus where we ended up putting a guitar solo. So Dan actually tracked the solo super quickly. This was pretty much one take all the way through. It was at first, and he came back and redid the beginning because it was a little bit out of tune, but kid was a beast. Came in and just absolutely destroyed it. So I'll kind of show you what that sounds like with the guitar solo coming out. And you'll see that we did pull out the distorted leads, and I did filter these kind of sidechain synths out just so that actual like guitar solo can really shine. So I'll show you what that sounds like in the whole mix. So we used guitar rig, and then we threw on some reverb and some delay, just kind of EQ'd it out to get the weird little like buzzy frequencies out. I did compress it actually, because since it was a solo, I wanted it super forward in the mix. And then I threw on Ozone's Imager and kind of spread it out to where, since I was using a mono track, but we had stereo processing on it with the delay and the reverb and stuff like that, it kind of spread it out a little bit more. So it sat in the middle of the mix, but then filled out the sides. So with the other guitar, it sounds like this. Then we just go to a little bridge that everything kind of dies down. We've again got a lot of swells and hits and stuff like that. So the main thing for this is this was pretty much just a pre-chorus production-wise, and then I put this like crushed wide vocal in it again. And then we actually did this over top of that. So we have a crushed wide low and a crushed wide high, and then I did this like kind of black bear formant shifting vocal that kind of acts as the lead for the first part. And with that format shifting, it kind of almost creates this natural rise, which I really liked. Then we have a reverse vocal that will come into like the actual vocal that comes in halfway through.
When I kiss you on the wrong drive home, passion was a prison when I pulled you close. Goddamn, I think you stole my heart. Tell me, do you feel it too?
Then we just have this one little low kind of phasery bridge vocal.
So what can I say to get to you? I'm doing all I can, but I can't break through. Losing my mind, trying to get your attention, yeah. So what can I say to get to?
Then we pull in some guitar that I didn't show you. It's in the intro, but we didn't actually get to that. We just got this little soft guitar. And then we've got these little guitar swells. Basically the same patch with a lot of reverb and then Kickstarter thrown over it, so it actually like gives it some pumping movement. Then we just kind of cut these distorted guitars up to do this nice little glitch. Super easy, nothing crazy on that. And then we have this little vocal that was reversed, but instead of just reversing it, I actually threw on Kickstarter, so it kind of swells up. So all of that together.
I'm doing all I can, but I can't break through. Losing my mind, trying to get your attention, yeah. So what can I say to get to you? I'm doing all I can, but I can't break through.
Production's the same, then Zach added in one last little chorus belt.
My mind trying to get your attention, yeah. Losing my mind, trying to get your attention, get your attention, get your attention, yeah. Trying to get your attention, yeah.
And then that's pretty much it. Big finish. And that's it. That's what goes into a pop rock track. So as you can see, the elements are pretty split 50-50 between just organic rock elements and then your more electronic kind of pop, hip hop driven elements. So of course we had the guitar, but on top of that we had a lot of synths, and we had the real bass, but on top of that we had some synth bass, and we had the real drums, but on top of that we had some electronic drums. So the real kind of goal with this is to find that good genre blend where you can mix some of your more electronic kind of industrial, just polished elements on top of the more organic elements, and that's going to give you that big kind of wall of sound, that dynamic. It's going to give you that sheen, and then really just vocal production. You know, that's the biggest difference between just standard rock and kind of pop rock, is processing them, stacking them, doing all the vocal production as you would in a pop track. So hopefully you guys like this. I know this was quite a big project. Once again, if you have anything that you want to know, let me know in the comments down below and I'll answer it. If you like this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Head over to our website, Make Pop Music, to check out all the stuff we have to offer over there. And that's going to do it for this week. We'll see you next time. Much love, everybody. Peace
So
out.
what can I say?